We don't get to see more of Max Packs in offline events. Maybe one day, but at this point, we've gone this far. I don't think that's gonna happen. to be, in my opinion, like if you haven't seen Max Packs play in an offline event by now, it's probably not gonna happen. So a little bit smudged, but that's why we should appreciate him while we can in these online tournaments that we have available here. And speaking of, spawning in the top left hand corner of Babylon, we have the South Korean Protoss player representing himself, as this madman is teamless, but he is so damn good. It's the Korean Protoss. It is classic. And spawning in the bottom right hand corner of Babylon, we have his opponent. We have the Italian Zerg player representing Team Basilisk. It is Reynor. And this is a spicy matchup, mate. A very spicy matchup. Classic has been on fire recently. He has been doing so well for himself. Unlike Hero, it took a little bit longer for Classic to really come into his own. We bring this up all the time, but you know, we always get some new viewers coming in. Hero and Classic, they actually came out of military service at the same time as they went in at the same time. And we saw Hero skyrocket when they both returned to StarCraft, you know, hand in hand. And Hero skyrocketed to the top of the Korean ladder. He skyrocketed to the top of the scene in general, and he suddenly was pioneering the new meta in PvZ and even PvT. Hero found a lot of success faster. Classic, it took a little bit longer for him to really come into his own, to really like get his skills back and also adapt to the meta as well. But this year, ever since Katowice, he has. He has adapted so well to it. It took him an additional like 6 or so months, but he got there in the end, and now he is one of the terrifying Protoss players in Korea right now. He is one that can go toe-to-toe with the best of them, and does go toe-to-toe with the best of them on a weekly basis. He takes down Dark and Solar and Hero and all the other big names, Cure as well. Especially in KungFu Cup, like Classic has been getting some really good results. But how does he compare to some of the foreigners? How does he compare to Reynor and Serral? I always wanted to see them face off, and now we're gonna get that. Let's go, let's go. What I love about Classic's PvZ is that he is so active. He reminds me so much of Hero, actually. He's very unpredictable. He's very aggressive as well, very micro-oriented, which means that his games are always a lot of fun to watch. Always a lot of fun to watch. I don't think his control is as good as Hero's, but it's comparable. It's definitely very close. Oh boy. And we'll see how this all does unfold. As for the time being, it is going to be a Stargate opener, as to be expected, a standard opener this time from Classic, and a little bit refreshing because this is not something that we saw from Mana. We saw a lot more of an aggressive style out of Mana, a lot more aggression early on in the game, I should say, with that Robo and Twilight Council opener. So Classic going to be opening up in a standard fashion with this Oracle, should be going into a second Oracle, should be going into a third base, but it's off of 3 bases where Classic can be unpredictable. He can go into Glaive Adepts, he can go into 7-gate Stalker all-ins, and even more standard transitions can be terrifying just because of his blink control as well. It was a couple of days ago where we saw Classic in ESL Americas, and we saw him absolutely demolish Zerg players there. But we'll see. We'll see how he does here tonight. Again, a lot of this does come down to how do the players feel, or how informed are they on the day in the tournament. The other thing that we should mention, actually, and we saw it in the series against Mana, and more often than not, we see Babylon vetoed by Protoss players. Babylon is very commonly used by Zerg players as the all-in map. It is very common for Zerg players to power down these rocks, or just push through these rocks, spread creep, and work through the rocks across the map as well, and just go for one big Queen Roach Ravager all-in. It's very dangerous, and it can be difficult for Protoss players to defend their third bases as a result. So interesting that this map made it through the veto process. We have seen Classic defend against all-ins versus Dark specifically on this map. Well, we'll see how confident he feels against Reynor, and we'll see if Reynor even goes for something like that. We'll see, as we do have our Adepts out on the field, going to be joining forces with the Oracles, and Classic is going to be looking to find some damage. For the time being, is just going to be going for some of these creep tumors, just going to be dancing with the Queens and the Lings. Nothing too committed. Behind this, additional gateways are being thrown down as well to reinforce. We're not going to be going hyper greedy into double robo production, for example, off of 2 gates. Ooh, a nice surround though on these adepts, and the queens are going to be able to DPS from the other side of the rocks as well. The oracles are late to react and they don't have enough energy. The adepts go down. A very nice pickup here from Reynor, and a little bit careless of Classic. Again, he assumed that his adepts would be safe and sound, but no, they all go down, and suddenly the map control is in favor of Reynor. He is free to expand, he's free to drone, free to spread creep. Really good catch there by Reynor. Meanwhile, Classic is looking to rotate between the bases, going to be threatening that natural at least, or even trying to catch some transferring workers. It's a risky move to go in between all these hatcheries, and oh my god, the queens almost get us around. And not quite worth it there for Classic. He's going to be able to escape with both of his oracles, but he does sustain some hull damage. Oh. Meanwhile, Classic is backing up, and he's setting up for a 4th base. How many gateways are we working with here? We're working only with 6 gateways. Enough to reinforce, enough to pressure, but we're not really committing to any kind of major push. It looks like Classic wants to apply some pressure while he expands and takes his 4th behind it. It can be risky just because these oracles don't have a lot of energy. Like, these stalkers are really vulnerable to surrounds, especially from lings. Typically, oracles offset that, you know, with their pulsar beams or with stasis traps. But because we've been using so much energy on and trying to get economic damage done, it's not really there to support the stalkers. So Classic does have to be careful. We go the stalkers. They do push on 4, just again flirting with these queens, not quite getting any of them. Are being forced back. So far the blinks are good. I don't believe we've lost the stalker yet. But again, we are fighting on a knife's edge. The lings, they go for a counterattack. They're going to be able to catch some of these reinforcements, but alas, they don't get past the stalkers. The 4th base is safe. And the 4th will be confirmed by Reynor with this ling run by. It's going to cost him quite a lot of lings, but at least he's able to, you know, recognize that Classic is expanding. See Reynor trying to be a little bit cheeky here, but no, he will not get the pylon. Behind this, Reynor is cutting workers at 75 for the time being. A pretty respectable worker count. We're up to 4 hatcheries. We got +2 melee on the way, bailing speed as well. Again, we are going to be heavily reliant on lings, and Roach Ravager is going to be the more supportive unit. Meanwhile, Reynor, a little bit out of position. He was setting up for a ling run by, but now that does expose his 4th base. The ling's completely out of position. They do turn back around, but not before so many queens went down. We do have the lings trying to surround, but that's where the oracles come into play. That's where the pulsar beam does shave them all off. This was a nice bit of damage here from Classic. Again, Reynor just not expecting Classic to be in his face like this, but this is the Classic we know and love. He's all about just making the Zerg player as uncomfortable as possible. Just always in the face with these stalkers. And a lot of lings went down. The Overlords are looking to be a little bit exposed as well. We are now working on more Oracle production. We have a 3rd Oracle, which I think is very smart. We will need them desperately. But at least Reynor was able to keep his workers alive, you know? He's still here at 75 workers. He kept his base alive. He lost queens and his creep is receding, don't get me wrong. But at least the economy is still in check. We do see lings getting ready for a surround though. Bailings are rolling on in as well. There are no stasis traps, and it looks like Classic, he will be able to blink out. Again, using the terrain to his advantage. With his cliff face, Reynor, he can't really engage with the Ling Bane. Meanwhile, Classic is taking a 5th base, and this is getting scary because Reynor is stuck on 4 bases. The economy of Reynor is now being superseded by Classic. On top of that, we've got more oracles on the way to help deal with all this Ling Bane. Things are getting a little bit out of hand. Reynor trying to deal with this, but pushing off of creep is never gonna work. Up. Files miss, Banelings go down. And again, just because Classic has been so aggressive, Reynor has no creep here whatsoever. He's barely connecting the bases. Of course, we saw earlier 4 queens go down as well. I'm sure that kind of that played its part. As Reynor's going to be trying to counterattack with everything he has. Banelings are looking for those connections, but they don't trade too well against Stalkers. The splits are just a little bit too good. The Roach Ravager is pushing forward, though. Stalkers are going down, but we still have so many Oracles. As I say that, they are getting piled. But now the Ravagers are exposed. Now that the Ling Bane has been dealt with, these are expensive losses for Reynor. At the same time, we have a massive Zealot run by, and it's going to be dealt with by Lings. Thankfully, we do have a couple of Banelings. Banelings will clean them up. Meanwhile, Classic getting his 5th up and running, going for another Zealot run by on the right-hand side. Now, thankfully, the Stalker count was cut in half in a way. We lost Classic did lose a lot of Stalkers, so Reynor has some time to breathe. He's going to be able to rebuild his Roaches, starting to respread some of that creep as well. 5th base is on the way, but not for too long because that Zealot run by has something to say about that. Zealots have arrived. Reynor able to react, but no, that's a kill, not a cancel. Oh, the hatchery does go down. Meanwhile, we have a massive warp themselves here into the natural base. Thankfully, we do have plenty of Banelings, and they will cancel the warp in. Reynor was ready for this, but did lose that hatchery. Meanwhile, the double Prism harass. Let's go. We have a Prism going into the main base. The Banelings were used up earlier, and now there just isn't enough to deal with these Zealots. At the same time, the Stalkers are pushing on forward. Biles will not connect. Oh, we are running out of Banelings on the front lines. The Oracles, they don't care anymore. They're going straight for the Queens. Meanwhile, it looks like the Zealots have been dealt with in the main. But we did pull a lot of the army back home to defend. The Queens will all go down, but we're also losing a lot of these Stalkers. The trades are pretty close. The army repositioning another Zealot run back, but this time Banelings are here to deal with it. Ooh. All the Zealots go down. Reynor, he can focus on his attack. He's going for a massive counterattack here with his Ling Roach Ravager, and we just warped in Zealots. We're still warping in Zealots. It looks like the side defense, the defender's advantage is just too damn good. Reynor is being forced back, and these Zealots are wreaking havoc in the natural. And you know what's scary? The Queen count was reset earlier, and now these Oracles, nothing shoots up. The Oracles, they focus on every single Ravager. The Lings, they don't shoot up. There's one Queen coming in to help, but it's only one Queen. And now it's no Queen. The Queen goes down. The Lings are being overwhelmed. And it looks like Classic has done it. GG gets called. Classic will take game number 1. Ooh. GG. And again, this is what we expect from Classic. Like, Classic, the way that he plays PvZ, he's always just in your face. He just doesn't let you breathe. He doesn't let you spread creep. He doesn't let you do anything without his consent, I should say. So, Classic, he can be a beast here, especially when things start going in his favor. Reynor having a hard time keeping up, but it's the best of 3. We are getting into game 2, and we can bring it back here, especially on this map. Ooh, as massive shout out to Ranger in the chat. Thank you so much for the raid. Hope you had a great stream. Hope you had a great ladder session. Thank you, Poppy. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed yourselves. Meanwhile, we are mid-series in Reynor versus Classic. Oh boy, here we go. Game 2 is going to be taking place on Neo Humanity. Another small map. Oh, I'm worried. Like, pretty interesting vetoes. It looks like maps like Ancient Cistern and Altitude and even Gresvan were vetoed in favor of the smaller maps, and I would usually kind of favor the Zerg player, especially Reynor, in this position. But we saw that Classic is more than happy to just use the map to his own advantage as well, and just use it to kind of launch pad his own army across the map. We saw it on Babylon. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of that on Neo Humanity as well. Just trying to get this going. Looks like we had a couple of issues with making the lobby, but we're in. It's all good. That pro must be very stressed next to the Zergling. Oh, un momento. Hold on. 1 second, 1 second. they're like the odd couple. They you know, they have their differences in life and in their paths as well, but you know, they live together. They deal with it. They're beautiful. It's okay. Alright, here we go. Sporting! In the top left-hand corner of Neo Humanity, we have the Italian Zerg player representing Team Basilisk. It is Reynor. Whack. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Neo Humanity, we have his opponent. We have the South Korean Protoss, currently teamless. And again, I say this all the time. It's actually a really big shame that he's teamless because he is so damn good at StarCraft. It is classic. The Duckling looks pretty cranky too. It's happy, Poppy. It's happy. Don't worry about it. He likes it, Poppy. He likes it. I never get to show off my plushies. I need to take a new photo because the photo that's used in the webcam scene is from 2019 when I brought my plushies to the ESL studio and we were able to take some photos. But ever since 2019, like we've had like the Charge Lot plushies, we've had the Marine plushies, the Overlord, the Derpfester. Like there's been so much more. My room is littered with them. It's all I spend my money on. It's that and ramen. That's all I got. But here we go. We're getting into game number 2. And we'll see how this all does unfold. Again, game 1 was a really good showcase of, you know, Classic's normal PvZ and kind of what his tendencies are. But we'll see what happens on Neo Humanity, because this map, even though it's very short and we can see a lot of all-ins and a lot of aggression on this map, especially when you knock down these rocks, like we can kind of launch creep through the middle of the map. Likewise, Protoss can also force themselves across the map as well. Otherwise, we could knock down these towers, we could utilize the terrain, and Classic could try to go super greedy instead. We've seen Hero work off of 2 gateways, go double robo, just wall off here outside his natural, wall off here outside his third, and here outside his fourth, and just tech up into the late game and go Sky Toss on Neo Humanity. It is definitely a viable option that you can go for here as a Protoss. Meanwhile, as a Zerg, likewise, when you do see your opponent taking up that way, Zerg can also mass expand, take a lot of drone up as heavily as possible, and get into a hive, get into hive tech to also meet the Protoss player and beat them there in the late game. Race them there and beat them there, I should say. So we'll see how this does unfold. Reynor is forced to take the unnatural natural, but doesn't take his natural as his third. He takes the forward hatchery instead, and this is a bit of a tell. This is going to be a launch pad, a staging ground here for creep to be spread more than halfway across the map. Creep can spread so quickly on Neo Humanity, especially if you do take this forward base, and this could lead to a later on a Roach push, a Queen all-in even. Roach Queen all-in. So we'll see. We'll see what Reynor does decide to go for. We've seen him do it before on Neo Humanity. We've seen Cyril do it as well. And Dark, all Zerg players really. It is within their repertoire. This has been spotted by Classic, and I'm sure this is going to be in the back of his mind as well. Just hyper aware of that creep, of these bases, of the layout. And Classic, I like. Interesting. Okay, so he goes for a Stargate opener, 1 Oracle. And off of 1 Oracle, very quickly goes into a Twilight Council behind this as well. No third base. The third base is being delayed. This is looking like Glaive Adepts. You see the Adepts threatening that third base as well. And I do really like Glaive Adepts in this position because there's no creep. Like, because of the layout of all these bases, like, they are so spread thin. It's going to be so difficult for Reynor to keep up and defend with all of his queens and with his roaches as well. Meanwhile, the Adepts are being cleaned up here in the main base. Third is thrown down. The Twilight Council is done. Show us what upgrade we're going for. There it is. Glaives is on the way. Again, the big tell for this is the fact that there's no Forge, so there's no longevity with Classic's army. His transition into Blink and +1 is going to be so delayed. He's going to be heavily reliant on these Glaive Adepts to deal some economic damage. Meanwhile, the Oracles across the map do get 7 drone kills. Not bad. Ling's going for a bit of a counterattack. Adepts are being morphed in defensively back at home. This could be a bit of a tell. As Reynor, is still droning quite heavily. That Roach Warren is delayed because of the Stargate opener. He's not quite ready for Adepts, but thankfully we don't really have too many Adepts. Going to be threatening a shade here in between the bases. And they are going to commit. There aren't that many Lings to deal with this. Lings are going to be going down. And can the Adepts get into the mineral line? It looks like they will, but Reynor is very quick to pull them back. At the same time, we do see Classic just shading on out of there as well. Just some lost mining time. No massive drone kills yet, other than those 7 workers earlier. Now here we go. Glaives is kicking in. Classic is desperately transitioning. We do have a blink on the way and that +1 that we were talking about, but it's going to be very late. These Adepts have to do damage. And so far, here we go. They do commit to the shade. The Lings are having a hard time getting us around here, but the drones are being pulled away, and the Lings will eventually clean this up. Roaches are coming out as well. As the Adepts do shade in towards the third base. No drone pull! No! Reynor! Oh my god, a massive delay on pulling away these workers, and all it takes is a couple of seconds. 8 drones went down. I'm not too sure if Reynor was maybe distracted by something else at the time. But the Adepts, they're actually getting a little bit out of control. They shade into the third base. They shade into the main as well. And this will eventually be cleaned up, but 12 workers have gone down. Not just 12 workers, this is also keeping Reynor busy at home while Classic saturates his third, gets +1, gets blink, and works on his transition. The Adepts are still alive. Thankfully, but not much longer. 14 workers go down. The Oracles are looking for a little bit more damage. They get a 15th, but only a 15th. Basically, a mineral line of Reynor does go down. And now we can see the Zerg player on par with the worker count with Classic. Meanwhile, Classic is working on his 4th as we speak. So Classic, he's ahead on bases, or soon to be ahead on bases, I should say. He has a decent Stalker count for that Roach counterattack. +1, far faster than that of Reynor as well. There's that transition. We have a Templar Archives on the way, so we can get into Storm, we can get into Archons. No disruptors. Interesting. And this is the power of near humanity as well. Classic, he knocks down the towers, which means that any kind of counterattack from Reynor is going to take that much longer to get across the map. Reynor is still licking his wounds, taking another base. He's working on Infestation Pit. Roach speed just finished. Without it, he couldn't really attack. But Reynor is cutting workers here at 65. I'm curious if he intends to drone up any more, or if he's just going to make nothing but roaches from here on out, and I think he may. So here we go, the roaches have arrived. Infestors are on the way as well for some fungals. A great way to lock down these stalkers. Well, we see Classic here with, one of his signature units. He's quite fond of his Blink Stalkers. Does throw down the Revelation, but he doesn't catch all the active tumors. He's forced back. Meanwhile, Reynor is droning. He is going to be saturating his 4th base. He isn't going to be going all in. But I do really appreciate these Infestors. They are going to be a great defensive unit here. If these Stalkers ever overextend, if they ever push too far up this ramp, they're going to get fungal. Meanwhile, the Blinks are looking pretty damn good here from Classic. Unfortunately, there is no Pathogen Glands, which means these Infestors still need a little bit more time before they can fungal. Oh my god, and we can see Classic, he's pushing on forward. He does get eyes on the Infestors. And he takes a couple of biles to the face. But he's trading so well with these Stalkers. And the Roaches are falling left and right. The Infestors, they can't quite come into play yet. They need more time. And here we go. Finally, we have enough energy. We go for the fungal, but at this point, it's too late. The Roaches and Ravagers are crumbling here before the might of the Stalkers. It looks like it is too late. We blink on forward and the Roaches go down. The Spores as well. Another fungal, but there is no follow-up. The fungals were just too little, too late. The boys are being pulled. We have a Stalker Reinforcements coming on in. Another fungal does connect. But those are going to be the only fungals we get in this entire game because every Infestor just got targeted down. We blink on forward once again. The boy's being pulled for a second time. The Prism survives. And it looks like Classic has done it. He has broken the third base of Reynor. GG gets called, and Classic doesn't drop a map. He takes the 2-0 over the Italian Zerg. GG. Oh. Oh. GG, well played. That was so close. Imagine if Classic had waited 20 seconds. 20 more seconds. You know what would have changed? Those infestors would have been ready with fungals, and we would have had a decent roach army as well. The goal there for Reynor was he was expecting Classic to push into him with stalkers, and he was going to lock them down. He was going to punish these stalkers and their aggressiveness with those infestors, but needed a little bit more time to actually gather that energy, and in that time the roach army fell. By the time we had fungals, by the time we had energy for those spells, the army was already dead. It was already too late. No. GG. GG, well played. Oh, congratulations to Classic as he does advance on in the tournament. He eliminates Reynor and has made it to the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, there's been a lot else. There's been a lot going on. Where are we going? What has been happening?